Online, we're coming up against a lot of barriers and we're not getting the jobs. Why? Well, I think that these individuals may be able to enlighten us on what human resources individuals look for in the people that they hire. So I'd like to ask if there are any questions, and if there are none, I just want to open the discussion up. This is your chance to find out whatever it is that you want to know. Whatever it is that you want to know, I can't guarantee you'll get an answer, but with 5 people with this much experience sitting up here, I think you get some kind of an idea. So I'm going to open up by just saying, you know, we can't get the interview unless the resume is right. So unless there's something that we need to talk about before the resume, do you think that would be a good place to start with the resume and what the resume should look like when it comes across your desk? Is it scanned? Is it actually read? Do we need to have a cover letter? Ms. Henning, I'd like to start with you. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay. I think the resume is important. I think it should have a cover letter. Keep in mind that when this, and I'm only speaking for myself, can't speak for anybody else, but I think a resume should be accurate, it should be current, it should represent and focus on the things that you have done, highlight some things that you've accomplished in your positions. Tell me how long you were there, what your title was, what your major responsibilities were. Be accurate. Don't inflate yourself to something that you weren't. Be honest about things. If you have gaps in employment, I'll ask you about those, as any good interviewer would. Be sure you are presenting yourself in the best possible light before I see you.
Do you have any comments on that one? That's something that we hear a lot. Keep it down to one page. So I'd like to, know the consensus of the panel, pretty much.
The point I would make is the resume is really becoming somewhat dated as a way of communicating with employers. You have to segment it though by size of employers. Most of the large organizations have databases online, as you know, so you go in to their home page, and again, this will be larger companies. This strategy doesn't work for smaller companies that still use a more traditional cover letter and resume. But in those larger companies, you're sorting through the jobs and trying to identify. You're doing some of the work of a recruiter by identifying a job that matches what you're interested in, and then you put in answers to the questions for what some of these pages are very robust, and you fill out lots of information. Some of them are not as robust. So you've done the job. What used to be when I was a young man and I was a recruiter prior to the internet, I would get lots of traditional paper cover letters and resumes, and plying through those was a chore. A lot of times now our recruiters are getting only those resumes that have been applied for online. And so the resume is still important. It's often the companies ask you to attach it. I'm with the notion that it should be one page. The idea of a resume is to give a summation of you that get me interested and want to talk to you. When I talk to you, I'll find out more. If
you say on your resume you were a teacher or you did X, I generally know what a teacher does. So if you have a whole paragraph explaining what a teacher does, that doesn't do anything for me. What I really want to know is what specifically that you do, intangible numbers in whatever job you've had that distinguish you from any other teacher. And so in a lot of cases you can do that in very specific bullet points with tangible numbers. And so I've seen kids come out of college with 2 pages, 3 pages resume. I've been in the workforce for almost 30 years, and I can get my resume on 1 page. If you've just been in college, you should be able to get yours on 1 page as well.
Yvonne, I would, and I think that's a great point. I think and I'll speak on it from the small business aspect. I'll tell you first things first, I'll tell you what my profession is in business, right? I'm talking sometimes less than
Yes.
And you'd rather change wording to mean something more than you want to give me all these adjectives about yourself. Like you know, the colleague who just said, we can figure out the rest. We're looking at the resume. We know, you know, we know what you come with that profession. So one page is what we're looking for. And for me personally, from the small business aspect, we get a lot of emails. We read, you know, that's the second thing she told me. You know, don't try to be cute. You know, we're scanning anyway.
Okay.
And we're looking for keywords. You know, with the day and age with smartphones and tablets and emails, we're inundated. We get a lot of emails. And so when I know me personally, when I see that, I'm going to see a lot of fluff in there, and I'm going to move on to something else. But I can see what you're supposed to have, your credentials. I can read. So I know it comes with a master's in accounting. But I'm more concerned about you. I want to know who you are, because our culture is all about team member stuff. So I would say invest in your resume, get someone to look at it. Don't try to be cute with your resume. Tell us who you are, what you do, what you know how to do. And then I think it's important to know from the large scale too. You're going to get filtered out the same way, so the principles are pretty much the same. If you're straight to the point, this is what I can do, this is what I can deliver. On the large scale, they'll be able to see that too. You know, so many times I know I talk to the Fortune 500 companies, and their HR, it's about the recruiting piece, and people that I know that actually are great people, some kind of way, even though they didn't have all the skill level, they was asked for an interview. Now those that had the skill level and were trying to be cute with their resume didn't get called for one. So you got to think at it from, you know, the principles still apply if you want to talk about large scale or small scale. Invest in yourself and invest in your resume.
I agree with what everyone has said so far. And one thing I like to always step outside of the box, and I look at it as when you're looking to go to a certain company or even events, you always see a flyer for what is in store at this event or at this company. And that's what your resume is. It's your flyer to the employer to say, hey, this is what you will get if you even have the opportunity. If you gotta sell it. And granted, don't be as cute to fluff it up and all those extra things, but this is your selling. This is you without talking. This is telling your story. So I always like to put it in that type of context. Say, this is your flyer. If you were hosting the event, you want someone to come out. You want someone to support it or do business with it. Same thing comes with the resume. And one technical note, especially for small companies like myself who are inundated with emails, one thing I see is, and this is very simple. Attach your resume to it. You may have a Word file or what have you. Attach it, but also put it in the body of the email. I like that traditionally because sometimes I've seen a lot of instances where opening that attachment is the only reason we can't reach your resume. And if it's also in the body of the email, we can at least go back up to it and see what should have been in that file we couldn't open. And
As a seasoned candidate, you have had a wealth of experience, and you have had experiences that you need to capitalize on. As this gentleman, my colleague down here said, include what's relative to the job you're applying for on your application or your resume, but talk about the things that you have done and what you have seen change. For instance, how you've adapted to change in the business world. Don't look at yourself as irrelevant, because coming into an interview process, your confidence and your belief in yourself are going to make me interested in talking to you and hearing what you've done and you telling me that and being able to explain it and show how it could relate to what you're applying for. So, you have a wealth of experience, don't sell that short. And think about, take some time, and this is in general, I think, before you have an interview, do some homework.